So you went to an all-girls school, and again, from what I've heard about the school, it doesn't have the most supportive environment when it comes to mental health. Can you walk me down through your experiences now that we are on this theme of discussing the childhood experience? So do you ever feel like fashion failed you at some point?
I feel like fashion's been always failing me ever since I got into it.
Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome back to another very exciting episode of Bahut Hi Kamal. And in this episode, we have Marsha with us. Marsha, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. Just my routine has been a little off these days, so my sleeping cycle is really messed up. Other than that, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm doing good. Okay, so in today's episode, we'll be delving into a very sensitive topic, but at the same time, I feel like it is something that needs to be said out. It's something that needs to be translated for the audience because a lot of us have grown up hearing that we are too big or too much or too heavy. And I feel like now at this point, we need to start changing the narratives. And this
Mhm.
is why it was extremely important for me to have this particular episode in the first place. And when I thought about doing this, the first person that came into my mind was Marsha because I've been following her work from a really long time. So I'm super grateful that you are here in the first
Of
place. And
course.
when I initially reached out to you, I thought I wouldn't get a response, but it just all worked out at the end of the day. So I'm super grateful for how it happened. Okay, so again, Marsha has an amazing Instagram page that she runs by her own name. You should all go check it out. Some of the most inspiring and amazing and artistic work that I've seen. Again, it's this one place I actually find a lot of comfort for myself as well. So you all should go check it out. And with that, we'll be delving into the conversation now. So, Marsha, for me specifically, since I was not the most conventional looking kid growing up, I had to hear a lot of things. And I feel like it started for most of us in the childhood. So, could you walk me through how your childhood was and what was the first time that you actually recall being called too big or too much?
I would say so. I've always been a fat kid, and I always say this, but I still am. And nothing has changed. But I think the earliest memory that I have of feeling like I was too big was maybe being like 10 or 11 and hearing stuff like you need to start thinking about your weight from now because when you grow up no one's going to marry you if you're still this size. And at 10, 11, 12, like marriage is not something that you think about. You don't even think about your body and you don't even realize that you're too big or you're too small, because that's not on your mind. But I think that was the first time when I realized that the body that I belonged to was not what others wanted me to be in.
And how did it impact your relationship with yourself?
I think when I was younger, it was more of I was still not at that stage where you worry about your body too much. So for me, it was like, okay, there's something wrong, but it was like, it wasn't like consuming me every day. And I think that started a little later in life when you become more cognizant of things like your body and like the way you look and stuff like that. And I think starting out when the first time I realized that I was big and I was fat, I think at that time it was like, okay, it was like a fact, okay, I'm fat, whatever. But then as I grew older, like it started becoming something that sort of consumed me and it became something that like sort of ended up defining me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, like, it's not these type of comments are not only coming from your family and friends; they also come from external people. Because I vividly remember that when I was growing up, there was only one shop that used to produce and sell children's clothing. And whenever I used to go there as a 6 7 year old, they would just automatically direct me to the section for teenagers because there would be nothing my size. And again, I'm a super tall person. I'm 6 feet right now, so again, nothing would fit me over there, and it sort of took a toll on me then. And especially when you go to parties and stuff, little kids parties and stuff, and everyone would be wearing cool Ben 10 printed clothes or like Tom and Jerry printed clothes, and you would be like in the most formal attire, a polo shirt with pants, and it would just feel really discouraging that maybe I'm growing too fast, or maybe I'm not getting to have all of these other experiences and look the way other people are looking. It really took a toll on my mental health for the longest time. But I feel like now I've come around a place that
Mhm.
I'm comfortable with who I am. Okay, Marsha, so again, a lot of people that I've talked to, they've gone through these weird stages in their life, which we usually call the fixing years, where they have tried everything from crash diet to looking a certain way to, again, people have gone to extremely unhealthy extremes as well in order to, fit the society's mold of what a person should be looking like for their age. Do you recall any such experiences?
I think for me, like, there was this need to sort of shrink and this need to sort of, like, like I used to have dreams about me, like, chopping off fat off my body because that was the dream. Like, it was like I had internalized that need to be skinny so bad that in my dreams, the only way to get rid of all of that fat was literally chopping up pieces of myself. And that's not a normal dream to have at like 14, 13. And I think, like, I mean, I've tried diets. I did keto. I lost a bunch of weight, but it made me feel like absolute shit. Like, I was weighing myself every single day, and I would weigh myself and take a photo of the scale and send it to the person who was managing my keto. And at that time, because I wanted to lose weight so desperately, I thought that was okay. But then I realized that it's not okay to be weighing yourself every day and sending it to someone for their approval. It felt like a very, like, demented, like, regiment. And I was like always low in energy. I felt like every time I was going to hang out with my friends, I had to bring my own food, and it just felt like there was something wrong with me. But I was so obsessed with the idea of wanting to lose weight and wanting that approval that it felt right in that moment. And I thought that was the best decision for me. But, like, years later, I realized that, there's other more sustainable ways to lose weight. And if someone wants to do that, that's good for them. But, tormenting yourself and subjecting to yourself to that kind of torture is not normal.
Again, this is something I can totally relate with because when I came to university, I became extremely conscious about how I looked. And I had a phase 3 years ago where I would, starve myself and like not eat at all or try to consume a lot of black coffee because this is something I heard that's going to help me lose weight. Smoking a lot of cigarettes so that my appetite shrinks. And I think it took a long time to actually realize that I'm just destroying my body at the end of the day just so I can look a certain way for other people. I feel like it has been a long journey for me as well. But I feel like it's the idea of coming in peace with who you are is also the most rewarding journey. Okay, so moving on. So you went to an all girls school, and again, from what I've heard about that school, it doesn't have the most supportive environment when it comes to mental health. Can you walk me down through your experiences going to that school, and at the same time, how how did you manage the entire process of coming on terms with who you are becoming and coming into your own person, but at the same time exposing yourself to an extremely toxic environment?
I think for me, like, the hardest part of growing up. So my school used to have these health checks every year, and they would, like, weigh you, they would take your height, and they would check your eyesight and all of that stuff. And I remember every year, like, nonstop, from the ages of, I would say, 7 to 17, every year I would get a letter that says diet plan for overweight children. And I feel like there was so much shame attached to getting that letter. And then, when you're like in a class full of all girls and everyone gets, like, their health report back, like, people are sort of like comparing their heights and comparing their weights. But I was always so ashamed of telling anyone my weight because I would be the biggest kid in the class, right? And I think it was just like I felt like there was so much shame around receiving that letter. And then the idea, like, I would hide that letter from my parents because I knew that I would get shit from them if they looked at that little letter that said diet for overweight children. And they would try to force me into that plan. And I didn't want to be doing that. So I think there was a lot of shame attached to that as well. And I remember, like, a lot of the times, like, I remember vividly, I think the time that my body image issues actually, like, started. And I remember this day very vividly, even though it was like 7, 8 years ago. So I was on a school trip with my teacher. Like, we had two teachers and a bunch of classmates, and we were on a school trip to Europe. And I remember we were in Belgium, and I had worn this. No, we were in Germany actually. I had worn this really cute outfit. It was a brand new outfit. It was yellow. I had a headband on, and I go downstairs for breakfast, and my teacher looks at me and she's like, "You need to start going on walks." And I'm like, I'm on a vacation that my parents paid for, and I'm here trying to have fun. I'm only 15, and I'm so excited to be dressed up in this new country and explore. And the first thing you say to me is that I need to lose weight. And I think that was the day, like, truly, like, I feel like that sort of triggered like years of body image issues. And I'm pretty sure for the teacher, it was just a comment in passing, and she probably doesn't even remember it now. But for me, it really made a huge impact on me. And I think the years following, like I really like it really stuck with me, and it's still stuck to me to this day.
For most of them, it's just a passing comment, right? But like the people who have to sit with it for years, they actually understand the
Mhm.
depth of every word that comes from their mouth. So again, you did not deserve all of that. The idea of having these conversations in the first place is to actually, preach a bit of empathy, be nicer to people. You don't know how your words are affecting people. And I think this is something that I realized within our generation as well. We just like to destroy other people just to protect ourselves or just to emotionally deflect, no matter at what cost it is coming. And this is something I would want to change. This is something you want to change as well. I get an idea. I feel like we all need to start being a little kinder to people. Do you recall any incidents of bullying from within the campus, from your own peers?
I think okay, I'm gonna say this, but I feel like I was very lucky to be in a school where, like, especially the grade that I was in, because we were all girls, bullying was not really a thing. I mean, it must be for other people, and I don't want to discredit their experiences, but for me, I never experienced it. And I think a lot of the bullying that I experienced was from teachers and adults in my life. And it was actually kind of funny that the kids were more empathetic when the adults were the one trying to like, shrink me and bring me down. And I know a lot of kids do go through bullying, and I think that's a very common thing to have to go through, especially when you grow up fat. But I would just say that I was lucky enough to not experience it, but that does not discredit anyone else's experience.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. But if I talk about my experiences, I think I have been called certain words have stuck by me. And a lot of people have ways to protect it or masquerade it. क्या प्यार से बोल रहे हैं. And I feel like this ties into our next theme that we are discussing, that our society has mastered the art of masquerading body shaming as love and empathy or love and kindness. That oh हम तुमसे प्यार करते हैं इसलिए हम तुम्हें ये बुला रहे हैं, चाहे तुम्हें अच्छा लग रहा है या नहीं लग रहा, but it's our way of showing love. So if we talk about if we talk from society's perspective, again, do you feel like being called such words affected your sense of deserving love growing up as a child?
I feel like, so for me, my family's nickname for me is Golu, which again, like, it's because I grew up fat. But I feel like for me, like, it didn't bother me that much growing up. Because I think maybe it should have bothered me at some point. Because, like, again, it comes from a place of affection. But it's like, I feel like Pakistani society has that habit of kind of, picking that one thing that you're most insecure about and turning it into a term of endearment. Like, I know, like, a lot of dark skinned people are called Kallu, or like, a lot of like skinny people are called other words. I think that's just a Pakistani thing in general. But growing up, I always thought that it was a term of affection, and I still don't mind it. I think it's a very precious name, and it comes from a place of love in my case. But I know that in a lot of cases it doesn't, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable being called those names. So I think if someone has that boundary where they're not okay being called such names, like, other people should respect it, even if they're your family.
That totally makes sense. And now that we are on this theme of discussing the childhood experience, so do you ever feel like fashion failed you at some point?
I feel like fashion's been always failing me ever since I got into it. And I think that's why I got into fashion, because I always felt like an outsider. I felt like I didn't belong. Because I remember even right now, I really don't go shopping in Pakistan because I know I will not find my size. And it's sort of like, it's kind of humiliating to go to a mall with your family and like all of these things and not be able to buy it because they don't cater to your size. And it's like, and even though like I go to college in America, even there, like, it is a little better, but it's not great. Like, even there, it's really hard for me to shop like in person. Like, if I find my size, it's gonna be online. So it's just that I feel like fashion was also one aspect, because I've always loved dressing up and, like, being into clothes. And I feel like the reason why my mental health was also declining because of my size was because I felt like I had to shrink myself in order to like fashion and in order to be fashionable. And I think my biggest triggers for my body would be the fact that I wouldn't fit into my old clothes, or I wouldn't, find my sizes in stores. And I think those would be my biggest triggers. And I think to this day, they are like, if I go shopping and I think I'm going to find my size and I don't, like, I will get triggered for the rest of the day, even to this day. So I think that has had a huge impact.
Okay. And now that you're working in fashion, first of all, I'm really sorry you had to go through all of those experiences. Again, our industry is not the most inclusive when it comes to sizing. This is something that still bothers me to till date. And even if you find something, it will be either too expensive or it would have to be made on order. It would take months and months to get processed. So again, totally understandable. But since you come from fashion, you work in fashion, do you feel like there is a change coming in? Over the course of the past few years, I have noticed that some brands are trying to be more inclusivity conscious, but I can't really decide if it's for the sake of public relations or are they really actually trying to make a change. So, what is your perspective on it? Is there a change coming in? And if a change is coming in, how can we ensure that it goes in the right direction and it's just not a public relations stunt?
Okay, I'm going to be very honest. I think a lot of the change that you see in the industry is very performative, in the sense that you would see these brands having plus size models on their campaigns, but in store their sizing only goes up to an XL. And like, it's just, I feel like, I mean, I'm glad that we're still getting some representation. I'm not going to say that I'm not, but I think that representation needs to translate into actual change in the form of having bigger sizing, having more inclusive sizing. And I think a lot of the times it's easy for brands to do it for marketing purposes. So, like, you get one big person, you put them in your clothes, you make them custom clothes, and you put it on your campaign, and everyone thinks you're amazing. And, you get rounds of applauses, but then in store, you're not carrying those sizes for normal, common people who look like that. And I think I've asked, like, I usually like try to have a chat with the store like employees, and I'm like, like, look, क्यों नहीं sizes carry करते बड़े? And they're like, madam, लोग खरीदते नहीं हैं. And I'm pretty sure that's bullshit, because I know a lot of people who look like me, and I get so many DMs on my Instagram with people telling me, like, help us where to buy clothes, like, we don't find our sizes. So I'm like, you have a demand, but you're claiming that there isn't any. So it's just, I feel like it's just a marketing tactic at this point. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think some representation is better than no representation. But again, representation on its own is not enough if there's not actual, like, tangible change.
Yeah, I totally get it. But at the same time, I feel like there's one thing I really want to point out that, okay, on the women's fashion front, there's still some advancement in terms of inclusivity. But if you talk about men's fashion, there is nothing as such. There is no representation at all. Be it even on a global scale, you don't see plus size men on the commercials. You don't see them on the runways. You don't see them anywhere. So I think this is like one bone I have to pick up with the fashion industry that it needs to change as well. I have never seen a campaign in my entire life in which the man did not have six packs and he was not flaunting his body. This has never occurred to me. And this is one thing that bothers me a lot. If you're talking about inclusivity as a whole, I feel like men deserve some sort of inclusion as well in this capacity. They deserve to be seen in different forms as well. And this is something I wish I could change in the future if I get to go in fashion. It's something I would be really passionate about because we talk a lot about insecurity of teenage girls, but I feel like there are a lot of men going through the same cycle as well, and they're projecting it in a very different capacity. They're not sitting and feeling for themselves in this domain, but they have their own healthy coping mechanisms of dealing with it. And I feel like this is a conversation that we need to get going. It's a conversation that needs to move forward as well. Marsha, what do you think would be that one memory? Okay, you previously talked about, going to Germany and your teacher making a very snarky comment and that sort of triggering the body image issues. But if you have to introspect on your entire life, what would be that one memory that still stings?
I think that was the one thing that I would say, like, the incident that I talked about earlier with, like, because I remember just being so excited and so full of joy about my new outfit and about being in a new country. And that just, like, I feel like it just ruined my day. And I think it ruined a lot of my years coming forth. because it was just something that's always stuck with me, and it's something that's still stuck with me. Because you know, अगर आपके अम्मी अब्बू बोलते हैं, आपके बहन भाई बोलते हैं, you sort of get used to it, you know, like अब एक कान से सुनते हो दूसरे से निकाल देते हो, which is not how it should be, but you kind of get used to it, right? But like coming from someone who's your teacher, someone, you know, who's supposed to be your guider and your mentor, and I think that sort of like really does a number on.
That was extremely harsh on our side, honestly. And I feel like teachers in Karachi in particular, because I've studied in three different cities, I've studied in three different cities, and I feel like my worst experiences with teachers have been in Karachi because they lack professionalism. They would say anything and everything to put you on the spot if you are not their favorite child. They play favorites day to day, and I went to okay. I can name my school. It's totally fine. Okay, so I went to PF chapter. I would say that school basically planted the seeds of all of my mental health issues, which I had to endure later in my life. So again, I feel like educational institutes should have more responsibility. They should be keeping bullying in check, not only from a student side but from the teacher side as well. And I feel like they should be more well groomed and a bit more professional in terms of how to actually interact with the children, because a lot of them don't carry it pretty well. It's something that needs to change.
Mhm.
Okay, Marsha, let's talk about journey to self-love and how does one get to a point where they start being comfortable in their own skin. So could you walk me through the process for yourself? I know it would be a very gradual process. It would have taken its course of time. But what was the one point where you decided that, okay, I'm done with what everyone is saying. I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to show up in the world unapologetically?
I think in some ways that has always been me. It was like, you know, like even when I was little and I was hearing all those comments, it hurt, but I would still always do what I wanted to do. And I think that's something that I admire about myself. And I think, you know, I feel like I wish there was an easy way for me to say that, you know, I felt bad. I did this and I was okay about my body. But that's not how it works. And I think anyone who expects it to work this way is like in for a ride, because they're going to realize that that's not how it works. But I think for me, it was a gradual process in the sense that I really stopped caring about what other people thought of me. You know, started like every time I would hear a comment about my body, I would fight back. I started drawing boundaries. I drew boundaries with the people in my life where I was like, you're not allowed to talk about my weight. You're not allowed to talk about my body. And I think that's something that really did help me. And again, I always say this, but I think like the fact that I had people in my life who were willing to respect my boundaries is also a privilege, and not a lot of people get that. So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have been in a privileged position to be surrounded by people who are willing to listen to me. But I think drawing those boundaries, whether people want to listen to you or not, but drawing those for yourself is very important. I started unfollowing people who made me feel bad about my body on social media. Like I remember, like I don't follow Kylie Jenner because every time I would look at her, I was like, why can I not look like this? You know, and like I've not been following her for years, and I just started surrounding myself, especially on social media, with people who looked like me, you know, more plus size influencers, people who were doing similar kind of work. And I think it was just like I'm still on that journey, and I think I still have a very, very long way to go. Because recently I have been struggling with my body a lot. But I think a lot of it has to do with just sort of like putting your foot down and demanding that respect and equality that other people are not willing to give you.
That's pretty impressive. And I think it takes a lot to set these boundaries in the first place. Because if I recall for myself, it was not only body image issues, it also translated to self-esteem issues. And I would bend a lot. I would accommodate people a lot. And I struggled with setting boundaries for the longest time because I thought it would push people away rather than, keeping my self-respect intact. So again, grew out of it. So kind of proud of myself for doing that. And again, if we talk about social media, it has had major influence the way I used to see myself. And honestly, your advice that you should get rid of all people who make you feel insecure is something everyone needs to follow, because this is constant state of comparison. Instagram for me used to be a place to unwind and just doom scroll for a bit to forget whatever is happening in my life. But it's now become this place where I'm constantly ideating, constantly comparing, because the format is pretty fucked up now, and it's just taking a lot out of me. I'm pretty sure everyone who's listening to it can resonate with that as well. Okay, so let's talk about your Instagram journey and how you decided to, go publicly, and then what has been the downside of it, what has been the good side of it. Has it been a rewarding journey overall? How would you sum it up for yourself?
I think it's definitely been one of the most rewarding things that I've done, not just for other people, but for myself. And I think it just started out as a thing in the pandemic because I was bored. But I feel like it's also been like I've been bullied on the internet a lot. And I mean I laugh about it now, but it's not like a fun thing to go through. It's just that like I've been like I started my Instagram when I was in 11th grade, and now I'm in my sophomore year of college. So it's been a long time. And like if someone's been following me from the start, they've seen me sort of make all of those transitions. But I think what my Instagram did for me was it connected me with other people who felt the same way that I did and who made me feel like I wasn't alone. And I think the reason why I find it rewarding also is that other people found me and they found someone who looked like them. I think my entire point to this day has always been that when I was growing up, I did not have the representation that I wanted. So I decided to be it. And I think that kind of sort of sums up why I've been doing Instagram and why I'm trying to create a platform is because I grew up without looking at someone who looked like me, who acted like me, who had the same problems as me, and it made me feel very isolated and very alone in my journey. So I think the fact that, I've had some people reach out to me telling me that, I have been able to be the person for them that they look up to in the sense that they can relate to me. And I think that's the most rewarding part of having that Instagram. And I think it's just a documentation of my journey trying to love my body, and it's just a reminder because I feel like every time I would look at Instagram, everyone looked so perfect and everyone looked so put together. And I was just like, that's not me. And I'm most of the time, if you know me personally, I'm a mess. And I feel like my content kind of reflects that. And I think it's okay to be a mess. It's okay to not love your body every day, all day. It's okay to, have imperfections. And I think I never saw that. And I think when I didn't see that, I was like, I don't see anyone who's showing all of these things. So why not become the person who does it for other people?
On this note, I would like to add one thing, that your Instagram is one of the most comfortable places on the internet for me, especially. And I have been following you for almost 3 years now. I started following you when the work shoot came out, which we'll be talking about next. But this is when you showed up on my Instagram and I started following you. Then I've seen all those transitions of you going to art school and you documenting those parts. And again, super proud of the work that you have done, and I'm pretty sure it's helping a lot of people out there. So I feel like I've been very successful in this mission all along. Okay, now we're talking about something I'm really excited to talk about, the work shoot with Misha Japanwala. Again, how did it come into being? How did everything was put together? Just walk me through everything because I'm really excited to hear about it.
Okay, so Misha is a dear friend, and she's someone that I really, really look up to, and I feel like she's like my big sister. And I think so. It was about, I would say, 2 years ago. I was interning for her, and I was just helping her manage her schedule and just little stuff. And that was when she was in Karachi working on the collection, the pieces that you see in the shoot. She was making those pieces. So I was sort of like trying to navigate, like, supporting her logistics wise while creating that collection. And I remember she was like, Marsha, when this collection's done, I really want you to, be a part of it. And I was like, of course, like, like if you tell me to jump in an ocean, I will do it for you. Because, that's just how I feel about her. So yeah, and then like a year later, she was shooting, and then I happened to be in town. She was in town, and and I still don't know what she saw in me to this day. But she said that she was looking for people who sort of embodied the ethos of the collection. It was about clarity and shedding shame, and she thought that I was one of those people. And I was really, really honored, and I was really touched that she would choose me because I really struggle with imposter syndrome. So I feel like I was like, why me? But I was like, obviously I wasn't gonna say no. So the day of the shoot rolled, and she was like, she asked me, she was like, do you want to be anonymous? Like, do you want to show your face? And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to show my face. Like, I do not want to be anonymous. And I remember the day I went to the shoot, there was actually a milad at my house, and my parents were like, they did not, like, I did not tell them that I was gonna be modeling for her. because I knew that they would flip. And I just told them that I was helping a friend out on a set. And then I came home with like makeup and like gelled back hair and like sand everywhere. And they were like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, I just subbed in for someone." Because I didn't have the strength to tell them that, I was going to be doing this and I was scared of their reaction. And then, we thought it was just going to be like a shoot and it was fun. And I met so many amazing people. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. And then it ended up being in Vogue. And I was like, damn, like, I can't believe that happened.
And then following that, how was it perceived publicly first, and then how was it perceived by your family?
I think publicly I got a lot of love and I think that I'm very lucky to have that. But obviously there was like a bunch of haters where like they are there
Haters are
every
gonna be
step of the way.
everywhere, no matter what you do.
Yeah, and I feel like, and honestly, like this is my mantra, and I tell this to everyone, but I feel like if I'm pissing off enough men, I'm doing something right. And I will stand by this till the day I die. And I think that's what it was, right? Like like so many men were just like losing it. And I was like, you know what? If I'm pissing off so many Pakistani men, I must have done something right in my life. And I think I did.
Like this energy.
Yeah, and I was like, and with my parents, it was like my dad just refused to look at it. He was like, I don't care. And I wish that, he would have gotten like he would have given me some credit or he would have been excited for me. But I think like again, there's this shame associated with our bodies, and my dad just didn't want to look at it. And I think that was a little upsetting. But I mean, he didn't say anything to me. So I think that's also like a good thing because I could have gotten in a lot more trouble, but I didn't. So I think win-win for me. But yeah, I was kind of scared, like to this day, like I'm kind of scared of what people would think because it's the first thing that you see when you come to my profile. But I think I've sort of grown out of that and I started on because I think like I feel like I'm an adult and I make my own choices. And I think it's really important to own your body and your choices. And I think that photo shoot really helped me do that. And it really helped me feel seen. And I think that was really important. And even if other people think negatively of that, the impact that it had on me was positive, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I'm glad it happened for you. Honestly, it's and then the way you're talking about it shows like how much fun you had, how excited you would have been. Then you're channeling that excitement in the episode right now as well. So I'm really glad it happened for you. And honestly, the entire collection of Misha based on Begarity, I feel like it just embodies, every South Asian rebel. People who want to, just change the narratives, get out there, get the job done, and not let anyone come between them. And it was amazing to look at that. Honestly, it made me really, really happy. Okay, now again, that was also the point, if I'm not wrong, that your Instagram got a bit more reach.
Definitely.
And also, eventually, with that, there would have been this pressure to represent every plus size girl. Did you ever feel that? So, my question now is that how did you privately cope up with your downers when people had this perception that you are always confident in your body?
I think that's a very good question because I think a lot of the times you're so focused on trying to be positive and trying to keep that positivity up that people forget that you're still human at the end of the day and you still struggle. But I think the way that I kind of dealt with it was that I was very open about my struggles. Like, like every time I would get a horrid comment, like I would screenshot it and put it in my story and be like pissed off another man. So I like it was like, that was my way of sort of dealing with it. And I think even now, the reason why I feel like my Instagram could grow a lot more, but I've just like, sort of taken a step back recently. And I think it's also because I'm trying to navigate that relationship between representing other people, representing, plus size people, but also trying to find that love for myself, if that makes sense. Because,
That
I
totally
feel like
makes
yeah, like sometimes, like recently I've been feeling so awful about my body that I feel like if I post something on Instagram, I'm being hypocritical because my inside isn't matching what I'm showing on the outside. And that's not something that I want to do. I want to be as transparent and as open as possible. And I don't want to keep pretending that, like I'm this positive, confident person when I'm not that right now. So I think there's definitely that pressure, but I think it's because of that pressure that I've sort of taken a step back and sort of trying to figure out where I stand with, showing my true authentic self. Because I mean, it is hard being vulnerable on the internet, right? Like everyone is practically a stranger. So I'm still trying to sort of find that balance.
Yeah, that totally makes complete sense. And also, I recently started doing this mini series on Instagram, which was called "Starting Dressing Up Every Day." Still, I start to love my body again, and I feel like it just gives the both sides that you can be an extremely confident person and out there person, but still you go through those moments of doubts and moments of imposter syndrome, as I put it earlier. So again, it takes a lot to put out the both sides. Now, again, this is something that I've been trying to do for the longest time. I've been trying to sit down and record an episode on depression, and I have scripted it 7 times. I've sat down for recording multiple times. I just can't. I just can't vocalize. I just freeze in the moment when it's time to put it out there. So I'm not sure when I'll be talking about it, or if I'll be ever talking about it, because it takes a lot of guts to put these things out there. Because again, I feel like it also a lot of people end up perceiving in a certain way that since they're used to looking at confident people and success stories and happy things on Instagram, they also start it also sort of indicates that this person might be looking for attention. And this is like one of my biggest triggers that if I'm putting something out there just to raise awareness, I don't necessarily want your attention in the first place. So again, I had something I had to deal with on my own. When I was scanning through your Instagram, I saw a lot of men leaving the nastiest comments ever. And I know this is your mantra that you have to like piss off enough men. There was like Besharam, Begarat, and they just like get away with it. Again, guys, not cool. You should not be again learn to be a little kinder. But my question to you is that when you hear these words and when you listen to these comments, how does your nervous system actually respond to those?
I think so. I'm a very, very sensitive person. And it's kind of like contradictory because, if someone speaks to me in a loud tone, like I will cry. That's how sensitive I am, right? But then when it comes to sort of all of these people on the internet, I think I've grown a pretty thick skin because I know that I'm not hearing all of this from people that matter to me. And these random people do not matter to me. And I think, again, like if I'm making enough people angry, like I think I'm doing something right. And I truly believe it. And it's just that, again, like it's not easy dealing with those comments. There have been days where I will not check my phone or where I will be obsessively going through my comments if someone's commented something bad and I will cry about it. But at the end of the day, I know that what I'm doing is for myself. Is what I'm doing is the negativity is less important and the love that I get and the space that I've created, not for anyone else, but for myself, is far more sacred to be tainted by someone else's bad comments, if that makes sense.
And that's totally understandable. Again, I feel like it's a process that everyone has to go on their own to grow a thicker skin. It's not an easy place to be in, so I'm super proud of you super proud of you, because you have been navigating it at a very young age. It will hopefully pay out one day. This is like the best thing I can say that you would, I'm pretty sure that you would get to be part of global stages and would be able to represent in a way that you have been longing to be represented for, or the type of representation you want for yourself. So all my best wishes to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Marsha, the society we live in, again, we have a very strict criteria of what's beautiful and what's not beautiful. And this is something that we all have been growing up hearing. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had to hear conversation, you were engaged in conversations about marriage when you were only 13, 11 years old, right? And society's perception of a perfect bahu is that she needs to be slim, she needs to be white as hell, and she needs to be again aesthetically pleasing for the others in their own versions. And this is something that I have grown up hearing कि लड़की को पतली और गोरी होना चाहे कोई और स्किल है या नहीं है, but these two things are enough for her to get through the society. So what do you have to say about that? And what change do you think that we can individually play on our parts to sort of change the narrative that is going on?
I think so. I feel like because I always grew up hearing that, no one wants to be with a fat girl or no one wants to marry a fat girl. I've spent a lot of my time feeling sorry because I've always heard, growing up that, people don't want to marry a fat girl or that, fat girls aren't loved. It's just that I spent a lot of my time believing that I was unlovable, that I was unattractive, and that I wasn't worthy of all of, those things like marriage and having a partner and all of that. And I think that really did take a toll on me. But I feel like it's really important to sort of change that narrative, and I think it sort of starts from within your home. It's like, every time someone's trying to have a conversation about these things, and they're what they're saying is perpetuating these norms, and they're talking about कि uski beti to thodi kali hai ya uski beti thodi moti hai,
Yeah.
stop them in their tracks and call them out. Like it needs to be nipped in the bud, is what I'm trying to say. Is that every time you hear your friend make a joke about something like this, stop them right in their tracks and call them out and tell them that it's not okay. I feel like the reason why this has been going on for so long is because we tolerate it. And when we stop tolerating it, I'm not saying that it's going to completely stop, but people are going to realize that we're not taking their bullshit anymore.
That completely makes sense. And I think, yeah, again, it's a term that it's a quote that I think about a lot. Be the change you want to see in the world, and I think it's time to really embody it and try. And again, I think the problem with our generation is that we can't sit with ourselves, and this is why we are so resistant to change in the first place because we can't challenge ourselves. It's the hardest thing ever for us. But again, if you want to see a positive force in the world, it starts from sitting with yourself, coding everything that you've grown up with, breaking down every stereotype you believe, and challenge the facts, go the hell out of it, become a better person. And that is the only way you can actually be a positive force in the world. Now, Marsha, I would like to conclude this podcast with a very simple, yet I would just try like to wrap it up with a piece of advice that you want to give others, and especially from a perspective that would be like that you are giving advice to 13-year-old Marsha, but it's actually for the audience out there. So, a 13-year-old right now is scrolling, crying over filtered influencers, and sort of sliding into this space of self hate, not feeling comfortable in their body. What would you like to say to them? And what do you want to leave behind in general? What do you want your legacy to be? So, just like, I know it's a very broad question, and I want you to take your time to think through what type of legacy would you like to leave behind for people who are struggling right now, especially, in that awkward phase of teenage where you question pretty much everything. And a lot of us do slide into these self sabotaging patterns. What advice would you have for those people?
Mhm.
And overall, what type of legacy do you want to leave behind? If people hear
Okay.
Marsha's name in 30 years' time, what do you want them to reiterate, or what type of attitude do you want to reinforce about yourself?
Okay, I think advice wise, if I was 13 or if my sister was 13, I would tell her that, you know, being a teenager is the hardest thing that you will ever do. I know people say that life gets harder, and it does, but being 13 is very hard. And you need to give yourself some credit. Not just 13, being a teenager in this world is really tough. The only person that would look out for you is yourself. So if you're not going to be kind to yourself, no one else will. And there's people who look like you, and people who act like you, and people who embody the same values as you. You just need to seek them out, and you need to build that safe space where you're surrounded by people who make you feel loved and who make you feel wanted. And if someone isn't making you feel loved and wanted, then they shouldn't have a place in your life. And I think it's okay to not feel great about yourself. It's okay to not like your body. It's okay to not feel like you're perfect and you're pretty and you're put together. It's okay. It's okay. All of these things are completely okay and they're completely normal. The only thing that you need to know is that your body is a vessel. Your body is looking pretty, and your body being perfect is not this destination. Your body is a vessel that will take you to your destination, and that destination could be having a good career, being a good person, getting a nice degree, having a family. That's your goal. Your body is just the vessel that takes you to that goal. And if you spend all your time worrying about the vessel, then it's going to be a lot harder to get to where you want to get to. And even if you do worry about your body, that's fine. Just know that your body takes care of you, it nourishes you. It's the one thing that has been with you from the moment that you were born to the moment that you will die. And if you won't take care of it, and if you won't love it and nourish it, then no one else will. And I think it's also a lot of the times I tell myself, and this is something that I still tell myself, that all of those mean things that you say to yourself. If imagine that a friend comes to you and a friend tells you, I feel fat. You were not gonna look at the friend in the face and you're not gonna be like, you're ugly, you're fat, you don't deserve love. You would never say the things you say to yourself to a friend. So if you wouldn't treat a friend like that, why treat your own self like that? And I think that's something that I've sort of started practicing in my life. And I'm still getting there. I'm still not there. But I think if it's something you wouldn't say to a friend, don't say it to yourself.
Yeah,
And
I've been like going in this direction as well. Again, I'm grown up super self-critical, perfectionism to the peak. When I started putting out content, I was super critical about it. Like, I can't believe I'm doing it. I have come to this point that I'm okay with doing an episode without the mic for the very first time because my mic wasn't working. Otherwise, a year ago, I would have panicked. I would have killed myself. I would have like destroyed myself completely. That why is this happening? How did it come to this point? And I feel like I'm letting that go, and it's the most comfortable and peaceful journey for me as well. It has been the most comfortable and peaceful journey for me as well. About just embracing yourself with all your flaws. It's not about people. Again, this is one thing I really want to bring up because people usually associate self love with them sort of protecting themselves from all of their flaws, hiding them, and showing up as their most confident self. But again, I feel like my definition of self love has been sort of evolving, and it has come to this point that you can be an extremely messy person, you can have all of these thoughts, but you choose to embrace them, and then you show up in the world unapologetically. This is how I want to live going forward, and this is how I would recommend everyone listening to this episode as well because it just puts you in a state of peace that okay, I am this person and I choose to love myself. I might have areas I might need to work on, I might have areas that I might need to grow on, but I choose to love myself and go forward with whatever I am. Okay, lastly, Marsha, thank you so much for doing this episode.
of
Any
course,
final remarks?
I think I'm so glad that you had me on here, and it was so nice just having this chat with you. And I'm really like grateful for your vulnerability because I know like it's not easy being vulnerable on the internet. So I think we should
I'm
both be very
learning, I
proud
would
of
say I'm
ourselves.
learning. Again, I
Yeah.
had a lot of exciting segments planned as well, but the conversation ran a bit longer. And the thing is, the audience is like towards long form content, and I learned this from my first episode ever. Most of them
Mhm.
dropped after 30 minutes of listening, so I need to keep it a bit shorter.
Yeah.
But hopefully, we'll have you back soon again when we'll have better infrastructure, and this might be a
Of
bit
course.
over. Again, was very nice to talk to you. It was again extremely important to explore these themes personally for myself as well and sort of get some form of closure, to get some form of again advice as well. And I have learned a lot throughout these 50 minutes of conversation. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Stop the recording part.